So let's get into what has been circulating online, because over the past day or so, the internet has once again decided to grab hold of a story and squeeze every possible reaction out of it. And this time the focus is back on Diddy, a name that seems unable to escape controversy lately no matter how quiet things appear on the surface. A new interview dropped on Vlad TV featuring a man who identifies himself as Sky Diggler, an escort who claims he was hired in connection with one of Diddy's alleged private gatherings. And before most people even had a chance to watch the full interview, clips, summaries, and reactions were already racing across social media. Vlad TV teased the interview ahead of time, saying it would be something that would make Diddy furious. And once people realized the nature of the claims being made, it became clear why that statement alone was enough to set the internet off. According to what's being said, Sky Diggler alleges that screenshots were shown during the interview, faces were blurred, and certain exchanges were referenced that have now become the subject of intense online debate. I'm not showing any of that material here, and I'm not encouraging anyone to spread it, because frankly, a lot of what's being discussed feels unnecessary, invasive, and embarrassing on a human level. That said, the reaction itself has become the story. Social media users immediately jumped on a specific allegation from the interview and turned it into ridicule, jokes, and a humiliating nickname that has now gone viral. People are laughing, mocking, and piling on, and once the internet decides to turn someone into a punchline, it rarely shows restraint. What's striking is not just the crude humor, but how quickly the narrative shifted from discussion to outright mockery, with little regard for boundaries or basic decency. This kind of behavior says as much about internet culture as it does about the person being discussed. From a psychological perspective, though, many people online are framing this as some sort of explanation for Diddy's past behavior, his reputation for anger, control, and dominance, and the many stories that have followed him over the years. The argument being made across comment sections is that when someone has achieved extreme levels of wealth, influence, and status, but still feels deeply insecure about certain aspects of themselves, it can create a volatile mix. People are speculating that insecurity, when combined with unchecked power, can lead to controlling behavior, emotional volatility, and a need to dominate situations rather than connect with people on equal footing. Whether that interpretation is fair or accurate is something only professionals and first-hand witnesses could truly assess. But it hasn't stopped armchair psychologists from connecting dots and revisiting old rumors through this new lens. What's undeniable is that this moment has stripped away whatever remaining mystique Diddy may have had as an untouchable figure. The jokes are relentless, the memes are everywhere, and the tone online suggests that sympathy has evaporated almost entirely. This isn't just gossip anymore, it's become a full-on public shaming cycle, and those cycles tend to take on a life of their own. People are not just mocking Diddy himself, but questioning his legacy, his relationships, and the authenticity of the image he spent decades building. And as always, when a public figure falls from grace in such a loud and humiliating way, the damage doesn't stay contained. His children are being mentioned, dragged into conversations they never asked to be part of, and that's where things start to feel especially uncomfortable. Regardless of how anyone feels about Diddy, it's hard to justify the collateral damage that comes with these online pile-ons. At the same time, this story is unfolding against the backdrop of ongoing legal troubles and past allegations, which only amplifies the intensity of the reaction. For many viewers, this interview feels like another crack in an already crumbling image, reinforcing the belief that the powerful are finally being exposed rather than protected. The humiliation factor is what's driving engagement here, not justice, not accountability, but shock value and spectacle. Add to that the knowledge that figures like 50 Cent have a long history of publicly mocking Diddy, and people are already anticipating the next wave of commentary. When personalities known for trolling and provocation catch wind of a story like this, it rarely ends quietly. The internet thrives on escalation, and every new reaction becomes fuel for the next. What we're witnessing is a shift from curiosity to entertainment, where serious conversations about power, behavior, and accountability are being drowned out by laughter and cruelty. And yet, this is the reality of modern media culture. Once the narrative takes hold, it doesn't matter how irrelevant or invasive the detail may be, it becomes part of the story simply because it captures attention. For older viewers especially, this kind of spectacle can feel jarring, even distasteful, because it highlights how little respect exists for privacy or dignity in the digital age. But ignoring it doesn't stop it, And understanding it means recognizing that public perception is often shaped less by facts and more by momentum. Diddy's situation now sits at the intersection of scandal, mockery, and long-simmering resentment toward powerful figures who were once seen as untouchable. Whether these allegations hold weight or fade away, the reputational damage has already been done in the court of public opinion. This interview didn't just add a new chapter. It reopened old wounds, reignited old conversations, and reminded everyone how quickly the mighty can be reduced to a trending joke. And once that happens, recovery is rare, because the internet doesn't forget. It archives, replays, and resurfaces everything whenever it's convenient. This is less about one escort's claims, and more about how fragile legacy becomes once public sentiment turns. And as we move forward, it's clear that this story is not just about embarrassment, but about how power, insecurity, and unchecked influence eventually collide in ways that no amount of money or fame can fully shield. As this story continued to unfold, what really stood out wasn't just the claims themselves, but the way the public reaction began to morph into something much larger than a single interview. Because once social media grabs hold of a narrative, it doesn't simply discuss it, it reshapes it, exaggerates it, and turns it into a reflection of broader frustrations people already have. In this case, the frustration isn't just about Diddy as a person, but about powerful men in general, men who spent decades surrounded by enablers, protected by wealth, and insulated from accountability. The interview with Sky Diggler, whether people believe every word or not, has become symbolic for many viewers who feel that the entertainment industry has long hidden uncomfortable truths behind fame and money. Online commentary quickly shifted from shock to interpretation, with people dissecting motives, behavior patterns, and long-standing rumors that suddenly feel, to them at least, more believable. Many are saying this interview didn't create anything new, but rather confirmed suspicions they've held for years, suspicions about control, ego, insecurity, and the darker side of excess. Psychologists and commentators alike often point out that extreme power without meaningful boundaries can distort how someone sees themselves and others, and people are now revisiting old stories about Diddy through that exact lens. Allegations of emotional volatility, dominance, and manipulation are being reframed as symptoms of deep insecurity rather than just personality flaws. And while none of that is a diagnosis, it's revealing how eager the public is to psychoanalyze fallen idols once the shine wears off. What's particularly striking is how quickly compassion disappears when someone is perceived as having abused their power. The public rarely grants grace to those it believes have already had too much privilege, and in moments like this, the reaction becomes less about truth and more about punishment. The humiliation, the jokes, the viral nicknames, all of it functions as a kind of social retribution, whether fair or not. And while some argue that ridicule is a poor substitute for justice, others see it as the only accountability these figures ever truly face. The problem is that this type of public reckoning doesn't stop cleanly at the individual. It spills over into families, associates, and anyone remotely connected, creating a ripple effect that often harms people who had no role in the alleged behavior. Diddy's children being dragged into online conversations is a perfect example of how indiscriminate internet outrage can be, and for older viewers especially, this aspect feels particularly troubling. There's a difference between holding someone accountable and turning their entire family into collateral damage, yet social media rarely draws that line. Meanwhile, the anticipation of responses from other high-profile figures has added fuel to the fire. 50 Cent, known for his sharp tongue and public feuds, looms large in this narrative, with many expecting him to weigh in simply because that's what he does. When personalities like that engage, the story evolves from controversy into entertainment, extending its lifespan and broadening its reach. And that's where the cycle becomes self-perpetuating. Each reaction generates another headline, each headline sparks another reaction, and before long, the original interview becomes almost secondary to the spectacle surrounding it. What's also happening here is a rewriting of legacy in real time. For decades, Diddy was viewed as a symbol of ambition, success, and cultural influence, particularly within hip-hop and business circles. Now, that image is being challenged not by a single revelation, but by an accumulation of narratives that paint a far less flattering picture. People are questioning whether the success was built on talent alone, or whether it was enabled by fear, control, and exploitation. These are heavy questions, and while an interview with an escort doesn't answer them definitively, it has reopened the door for people to ask them more loudly than ever before. There's also a generational divide in how this is being consumed. Younger audiences tend to treat the situation as meme-worthy content, while older viewers are more likely to view it through the lens of morality, consequences, and cultural decay. For those who remember a time when public figures retained some semblance of privacy, this moment underscores how dramatically things have changed. Today, humiliation travels faster than facts, and once a reputation becomes entertainment, it's nearly impossible to restore dignity. The escort's claims, sensational as they may be, are almost less significant than the reaction they triggered, because that reaction reveals how little patience the public has left for powerful figures who appear to have abused their position. Whether this outrage leads to meaningful accountability or simply fades into the next viral scandal remains to be seen, but the emotional response is real and intense. People are angry, not just amused, and that anger seems rooted in a sense that the truth, whatever it may be, was buried for far too long. At the same time, there's an uncomfortable truth that needs to be acknowledged. Public shaming doesn't discriminate between truth and exaggeration. Once a narrative gains traction, nuance is often lost, replaced by extremes that attract attention. This is where caution becomes necessary, especially for viewers who value fairness and perspective. It's possible to believe in accountability without celebrating cruelty, and it's possible to question allegations without dismissing them outright. Unfortunately, social media rarely operates in that balanced space. Instead, it thrives on absolutes, heroes and villains, victims and monsters. Diddy has now been firmly placed into the latter category by a significant portion of the public, and climbing out of that box is nearly impossible once it's sealed. The ongoing discussion also raises broader questions about fame itself, about what kind of personalities are drawn to power, and how society rewards confidence without always scrutinizing character. When success becomes the ultimate shield, it can take decades for cracks to appear, and when they do, the collapse feels sudden even though the warning signs were there all along. This is why so many people feel this story, uncomfortable as it is, matters beyond gossip. To them, it represents a long overdue reckoning, not just for one man, but for an entire system that allowed excess and ego to go unchecked. And yet, amid all of this, it's worth remembering that speculation is not proof, and viral outrage is not due process. For older audiences especially, that distinction matters. The danger lies in allowing emotion to replace reason entirely, because while the court of public opinion is loud, it is not always just. Still, the reality remains that Diddy's public image has been fundamentally altered. Whether through legal outcomes, further revelations, or simple passage of time, this chapter will forever be part of how he is remembered. The interview didn't just embarrass him. It shifted the cultural conversation around him in a way that cannot be undone. And as the reactions continue to ripple outward, it's becoming clear that this is no longer just a moment. It's a turning point, one that reflects how society now handles power, scandal, and the fall of those once placed on pedestals. As we step back from the noise of the internet and look at the broader picture, what becomes increasingly clear is that this moment isn't just about one interview, one rumor, or one headline, but about how celebrity culture itself has reached a breaking point where spectacle consistently outweighs substance. The Diddy situation has now entered a phase where public embarrassment has become the dominant storyline, eclipsing serious discussion about accountability, responsibility, and truth. That shift matters because once ridicule becomes the primary lens, the conversation loses depth and direction. For many older viewers, this is especially unsettling because it reflects a cultural environment where humiliation is treated as entertainment rather than a byproduct of wrongdoing. In previous eras, public figures fell quietly or faced consequences through formal channels. But today, everything unfolds in real time, under constant scrutiny, with millions of strangers acting as judge, jury, and commentator. The internet doesn't pause to ask whether something should be shared, only whether it can be shared, and that distinction has reshaped how reputations rise and fall. In Diddy's case, the accumulation of past allegations, lawsuits, and controversies has created fertile ground for the public to accept almost any negative narrative without hesitation. This doesn't mean every claim is true, but it does mean trust has eroded to the point where benefit of the doubt no longer exists. And once trust is gone, rebuilding it becomes nearly impossible, no matter how successful or influential someone once was. This is where legacy truly comes into question. Legacy isn't just about accomplishments. It's about how those accomplishments are remembered when the dust settles. For decades, Diddy represented ambition, hustle, and cultural influence, particularly for communities that saw his rise as proof that success was possible against the odds. Now that image is being re-examined, not just by critics, but by people who once admired him. Disillusionment carries its own weight, and when fans feel betrayed, their reactions are often harsher than those of longtime skeptics. This is why the public response has been so intense. It's not merely curiosity, it's disappointment mixed with anger, and that emotional combination fuels the relentless commentary. At the same time, it's important to acknowledge how easily serious conversations become distorted once they're filtered through viral culture. Important questions about power dynamics, consent, and industry accountability risk being overshadowed by jokes, memes, and sensational headlines. That's not progress, even if it feels cathartic to some. Accountability should aim to protect others and prevent harm, not simply to humiliate. Yet humiliation has become the internet's preferred currency, because it spreads faster and demands less nuance. This dynamic also reveals something uncomfortable about society's relationship with celebrity downfall. There's a hunger to witness powerful figures stumble, a sense of collective satisfaction when someone perceived as untouchable is brought low. That impulse isn't new, but social media has amplified it to unprecedented levels. The difference now is scale and permanence. Once something goes viral, it doesn't fade away. It lingers, resurfaces, and becomes part of a permanent digital record. For Diddy, this means that even if future developments complicate or contradict current narratives, the damage to his public image will remain. This moment will be referenced, replayed, and reinterpreted indefinitely. Beyond Diddy himself, this situation serves as a cautionary tale for the entertainment industry as a whole. It highlights how environments built on excess, secrecy, and imbalance of power are inherently unstable. Eventually, stories emerge, whether through lawsuits, interviews, or leaked information, and when they do, the backlash is often severe. The industry has long relied on silence, settlements, and image management to contain scandals, but those tools are losing effectiveness in an age where anyone with a platform can speak directly to millions. That shift has democratized storytelling, but it has also blurred the line between truth-seeking and attention-seeking. Sorting one from the other requires patience and critical thinking, qualities that are increasingly rare in viral discourse. This is why older audiences play such an important role in conversations like this. With life experience comes perspective, and perspective is essential when navigating stories that provoke strong emotional reactions. It's possible to condemn harmful behavior without endorsing cruelty, and it's possible to demand accountability without surrendering fairness. Those distinctions matter, especially when public opinion has real consequences for real people. The temptation to reduce complex situations into simple narratives is strong, but reality is rarely that neat. As the dust continues to swirl around Diddy, the ultimate outcomes, whether legal, personal, or cultural, remain uncertain. What is certain, however, is that this chapter has already reshaped how he is perceived. The image of the untouchable mogul has been replaced by something far more fragile, and that transformation reflects broader changes in how society views power and fame. No amount of money or influence can fully shield someone from public scrutiny anymore, and in some ways, that's a necessary correction. But correction should aim for accountability, not spectacle alone. As viewers, especially those who value thoughtful discussion, it's worth resisting the urge to participate in pile-ons and instead focus on what these stories reveal about the systems that allowed such situations to develop in the first place. If there's any constructive takeaway from this moment, it's the reminder that unchecked power, regardless of who holds it, eventually invites scrutiny. And when scrutiny arrives, it rarely comes gently. Let this serve as a moment to reflect not just on one man's fall from grace, but on how we as a culture choose to respond when the curtain is pulled back. Because the way we engage with these stories says as much about us as it does about the people at the center of them. As always, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts, where you're watching from, and how you feel about the direction celebrity culture has taken. If you found this discussion thoughtful, consider subscribing, leaving a comment, and joining the ongoing conversation. I'll be back with more updates and reflections soon, because in today's media landscape, these conversations aren't going away, they're only evolving.